So, Sylvie and Bruno was a book that, Lewis Carroll published in 1889, and then Sylvie and Bruno concluded. The next volume of it came out in 1893. So, quite a few decades after the more famous Alice books were written. And one thing he's pretty clear about in the preface to this work is that he really wants to make the distinction there between himself and authors who have to mass produce their works. He doesn't go as far as to say there's no padding, but he believes there's enough material that he's acquired over the years from dreams and random thoughts during strolls he's taken to have a good kind of amount of literary substance to work with. And he's really, explicitly setting out to do something very original, even as he realizes that that is a very daunting task in literature. And it's a very, very talky book for a children's book. There's a lot of arguments, a lot of very contentious discussions, a lot of witticisms, a lot of storytelling. You get these interesting discussions like this debate over whether it's possible for a crocodile to be long enough to walk on its own head. It's a very episodic book. There's a lot of stories, a lot of verses, songs, riddles, a little bit of everything. And one of the things that's a little bit different from like the Alice books is that while, similar to those books, there's a kind of normal human world and sort of a fantastical world. The boundary between them is a lot more unstable. The narrator goes back and forth a lot more. And the rules that determine kind of what goes on and like how you go from one to the other and, how the fantastical world actually works, they're kind of hard to figure out. And it seems like they change a little bit. It kind of seems like a lot of the time when he's in Sylvie and Bruno's world, they're the only ones who can understand him. I think they tell him at one point that they could come into his world and meet his friends, but if they were going to do it, they would have to take the form of human children. He doesn't always seem conscious of the fact that he's changing worlds. He doesn't even seem to know he's dozed off or anything. It's just suddenly he's in one or the other instead of where he was previously. The rate that time passes in the two different worlds doesn't seem to be the same. In chapter 22, I think he even says that, the whole episode of the preceding chapter, the previous chapter happened during a comma of, Lady Muriel's speech in his world. At times he even seems afraid that, he sees things that make him think that, the two worlds might be about to collapse into each other. There's a lot going on there with the interplay between the two. It seems strange to say that such a fantastical work is really about coming to terms with our earthly limitations. And yet that does seem to be a significant moral message in the book. There's an entire discussion about this idea that, things in nature clearly do seem to operate according to fixed, natural laws that God has clearly set in motion. So if you're going to pray to God, the thing you should really pray is, that he like strengthens your own will, your own resolve, rather than things like, wanting it to rain on this day or not wanting it to rain on that day, because to ask God to intervene in these laws that operate in this way that he's clearly set in motion is to ask a miracle, which is far more than anybody ought to be asking. And Sylvie seems to get that. And that's why her and Bruno don't try to use time travel to get what they want, even though the professor seems to believe it's real. And the narrator kind of learns that too, when he tries to prevent an accident, but only ends up forestalling it. The narrator can't manipulate the world he's living in. The magical realm isn't a place you can escape to. That's why he doesn't even really go there out of his own volition. The narrator and the reader are just kind of along for the ride when there's a shift in what world they're in. And even time travel doesn't seem to, be able to alter anything substantially. Um, this message that there aren't any quick fixes, it's kind of humorously reinforced by the fact that, the emperor tries to, double everybody's wealth by giving them twice as much money from the treasury. But when he doesn't have enough, he just tries to double the value of each coin. And the professor thinks this is a great idea. He doesn't see any reason it wouldn't work. And one of the things he says in the preface, is that the real purpose of life is the development of character. And that's probably the reason that Sylvie, when she has that choice between, a locket that says all will love Sylvie and a locket that says Sylvie will love all, she picks the latter because she seems to understand that they should want to manipulate, what others do. You should want to trust to your own resolve. You should want to um, focus on doing the right thing yourself.